The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
Hey everybody, happy Wednesday, December 27th. All right, let's continue from yesterday. So today we're going to recap starting with episode number 34 and then see how far we can get within 20 minutes. If you didn't get a chance to listen to yesterday's episode, in addition to talking about what a wonderful time I had with my niece, I basically recapped episode number 1 through 33 with really just a top line on the episode and maybe a key takeaway. So, for those that are new to the podcast or those that just want a quick refresh, again, new phrase, repetition is the mother of all learning. It truly is. You can go back and listen to episode 80 from yesterday. That'll give you a solid just a top line on episode 1 through 33. And then if there's something in particular you want to go check out, you can do that. But let's get started on episode 34. So, episode 34 was basically the beginning of it, really took place on October 8th. And it was the beginning of covering this, incredibly unfortunate situation that started on October 7th in Palestine and in the Gaza Strip, and basically has emerged into this war between Israel and then Hamas. All right, so episode 34 was part 1 of that series. It was called the Holy Land Saga, Israel versus Palestine. And here I really just tried to set the stage and ask some initial questions, really, that we ended up answering and continue to answer over the course of these podcasts. But this is a really good one. This is actually the third most popular episode according to the statistics that I see on my Spotify for podcasters. And so, if you really want to try and understand this ongoing situation, I would start with episode 34. Episode number 35 really delved into the relationship between Israel, Palestine, and the Democrats, which again, initially was very surprising to me. It was very surprising there, quite frankly, wasn't a better relationship there. And so there's a lot of quotes and there's a lot of clips actually throughout from people like President Obama, Bernie Sanders, President Biden. Really, there's a lot of clips throughout this entire series. But part 2 focuses on Israel and the Democrats. Part 3 then focuses on Israel, Palestine, and the Republicans. And here is where I'll say, honestly, this has been a little eye-opening for me personally to understand really the unilateral support of the Republican Party, as well as all of the Republican pundits with Israel, the talking heads on social media, on regular media. This is like they are 100% in. And I figured it out. I mean, it's really all about religion. It's all about Christianity and Judaism. And the Republican Party, which is rooted in Christianity and to a big extent the evangelical Christians, which we're going to delve into all that in an episode. I really find that stuff fascinating. But they are unilaterally in support of Israel, and it's continued. So part 3 talks about the Republicans. Episode number 37 focuses on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And you know what? I think I'm going to end up doing a supplement to this because so much has emerged really since October 16th, which was the date of episode 37. So 37 is about Netanyahu. Episode 38, it really dives into the media. It talks about how the media has been covering this situation. This was on October 17th. Episode 39 delves a little more into history. This was part 6. So this talked about the Israel and Palestine and the overall history of that region. Episode number 40, this one actually dived into some audience feedback, which was actually very interesting. So this one's a good listen. There's some audience feedback in there and really perspective that I got across the social media platforms. And then even within, my own network of what people commented and what they were thinking. At this point, it's October 19th. And remember, this situation started on October 7th. Episode number 41, this one dives into President Biden's Oval Office address. So there's some really good clips in there. This was on October 23rd that talked about his Oval Office address and then the request for an additional $100 billion in funding. episode number 42. This was part 9 in the series, and this one, gosh, this was when things really started to heat up in that region. This was on October 24th, and this was the first big hospital bombing, the Al Allah Arab hospital bombing. I mean, this stuff is just brutal. It's really brutal. If you have been following this entire story and paying attention, I mean, oh, it's just not been good. But you know what? That's not what I'm going to talk about right now. So episode 42 talked about the hospital bombing. Episode 43 was a little bit of a bonus revisit to that because that hospital bombing was very complicated and ended up having a lot of controversy around it. So I grabbed some great clips from the BBC, from CNN, from the New York Times, all of, again, the seemingly credible sources that are out there in order to basically, tell that story in regards to that first hospital bombing. Okay, episode number 44. Here we switched gears a little bit. There continues to be talk about Israel and Palestine moving forward, but after 9 segments on that, I decided to kind of move away from really exclusively talking it. So this was a pretty cool episode. I really focused on Jimmy Carter, Jon Stewart, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and then Fareed Zakaria. So there's some great clips in episode 44. Episode 45 was really focusing on the United Nations and their urgent call for a ceasefire, which, gosh, has continued. And obviously, we've had a couple minor ceasefires, but nothing that's been permanent. All right, episode 46. This was a really good one. Gosh, I don't know why I didn't label this a DSD exclusive, a DSDX, but this really focused a little bit on the Israel-Palestine stuff, but it really talked about the petrodollar. So if you want to understand what the petrodollar is, and if right now you're like, what the heck's a petrodollar? I highly would recommend giving a listen to episode number 46. Okay, episode number 47. This was probably my most mysterious title. The title was or. And really, episode 47 kind of presented different situations or other situations. So it was an interesting one to listen to. Episode number 48. Gosh, this should have been a DSD exclusive as well. But this was all about the military industrial complex. This one, again, I highly recommend, along with the petrodollar episode, which was episode 46. Give a listen to episode 48 so you can understand the military industrial complex. This episode also did debut the long awaited, often imitated, never duplicated top 5 phrases from Ray D as presented by the one and only Ray D AI. So those were my top 5 catchphrases, and I'll give you a spoiler alert in case you don't want to go back and listen. The number one phrase that this artificial intelligence software said I say the most is, "That's insane." So that's insane that I say that's insane that much. That's funny. That's very funny. All right, episode 49. This was Military Industrial Complex Part 2, and then this really had a decent amount of information about Bernie Sanders and then President Obama. Okay, episode 50. This was another one that, man, honestly, it was one of my favorite episodes to do because, gosh, this situation is so sad and it is just ongoing and no one cares. It is about slavery in the Congo and what's going on in the Congo, the DRC, in terms of the mining of lithium, which is what we use in all of our phones, electric vehicles, and so many other places. But this situation in the Congo is so freaking sad and nobody cares. Literally, it does not seem anyone really cares. And that's why the episode is titled Slavery in the Congo: Why No One Cares. That's sad. All right, episode 51. This was covering the GOP debate number 3. And in that episode, honestly, I thought Vivek Ramaswamy crushed debate 3, and he literally used the term call a spade a spade. So that was kind of cool. I don't think he necessarily used that because of me, but you know what? Let's say he did. Let's go with that. So if you are a GOP debate fan, I would definitely listen to episode 51 to get a coverage of debate number 3. Okay, episode number 52. This was called Surprising Changes in Perspectives as Beliefs Shift Over Faith. And this was another kind of real talk episode where honestly I highlighted a couple friends that I had not really had issues with. Well, kind of issues, but it basically talked about how the Israel-Palestine situation has really turned everybody's perspective upside down in for good and for bad. And so that one, episode 52, is definitely a heartfelt episode that really dives into some real talk. Okay, episode number 53, we talked about tanks, transformations, and tensions. Again, another real talk episode, raw and real, which I gave my perspective on pretty much all of the stuff that was taking place at the time. Episode number 54, this one talked about the Nashville shooter and really why that situation seemed to be kind of hidden from the public as much as it was. We also introduced French President Emmanuel Macron and some clips he had with CNN and BBC, because I do see a little bit of a division between France and Canada. So Macron and Justin Trudeau from Great Britain and the United States, so from Biden and Rishi Sunak. And as I talk about in future episodes, or as I talk about in other episodes subsequent to this, that could be because of this discovery of natural gas in the Gaza Marine. It could be because of what's taking place in the talk about them building a competitive canal to the Suez Canal. And basically, from all of that stuff, it looks like France and Canada have kind of been iced out of that. So it's really just Israel and the United States. And so maybe that's why you're seeing Macron and Trudeau honestly say some things that I never would expect them to say, quite frankly. They're basically going against Biden and Rishi Sunak. So anyway, that's episode 54. Episode number 55. This one's actually another cool episode. It is called How Do I Podcast? So it gives clarity on really so many things that I do to do what I am doing right now. So if you want to understand podcasting better, I've got my hackathon episode in episode number 5, and this one is kind of a complement to that. And then also remember, there's a couple episodes that talk about how I'm leveraging AI. There's also an episode that compares ChatGPT versus Google Bard. So if you want to understand the element around how I'm podcasting, episode 55 would be a good one to listen to. All right, took a sip of coffee. Episode number 56. Okay, this is a good one. This is called the One China Policy. I'm actually doing an entire series on China. There'll probably be 3 or 4 total podcast episodes that really focus on China. And so episode number 56 introduces the One China Policy and starts the introduction on the social credit score. We also talk about Nikki Haley because from what I'm seeing, if there's anyone that is trying to implement the things that are taking place in China, the case study that they're doing in China, it's Nikki Haley, where she talks about monitoring social media, getting rid of TikTok and things like that. So episode 56, One China Policy, it's a good one. Episode number 57. This one is kind of a hodgepodge of famous people. We talk about Trump, Obama, Justin Trudeau, Pierce Morgan, and the BBC. So a lot of good clips in episode 57. Episode 58. This one, again, top 5 episode for me. Deep Shallow Dive exclusive, DSDX. It's about Julian Assange, the catalyst of faith and founder of WikiLeaks. If you want to understand the incredibly sad and torturous situation that they're doing to Julian Assange, give a listen to episode number 58. Okay, episode 59, another heartfelt real talk episode. It's called A Reason, a Season, and a Lifetime. I really was giving thanks to all you guys in episode 59. This was right before Thanksgiving. And then there's a really cool quote saying whatever that I play at the end, which basically talks about how when you group people into three categories, a reason, a season, and a lifetime, and you understand the role they play in your life, and then also you understand the role you might play in someone else's life, it actually puts those relationships in perspective. And it helps you appreciate those relationships for what they are, and then, quite frankly, for what they are not. All right, episode number 60. This one dived into the New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Jamie Foxx, a little bit about Benjamin Netanyahu, and then this goofy Stewart, gosh, I'm forgetting his name, who went on a crazy racist rant in New York City. But this one was a good one because this was when it was like the last day of all those lawsuits that got dropped on people whom were getting accused of various sexual assaults or harassments like from 30 or 50 years ago. So that's episode number 60. Okay, episode 61, another good one. The story of Iraq and the parallels to today. I, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. The story of Iraq is definitely one that has many parts to it, and it's not the stuff we had previously been told back when the weapons of mass destruction talk was in the zeitgeist. All right, episode number 62. This one really quoted some NPR audio quotes from like 2005. Pretty nuts, pretty nuts. And actually, I've found a bunch more. I'm really trying to go back and find stuff from the mid 2000s because I feel like that's legit. Like when we find out what they were saying back then, it's actually incredibly interesting to hear that and then to see what we're living in. This also introduced the potential of a relationship between Israel and then the Palestinian Authority, the PA. So you've got Benjamin Netanyahu and Mahmoud Abbas. All right, episode number 63, another great one, another DSDX, a Deep Shallow Dive exclusive, and it was unraveling the Nord Stream explosion the pipeline explosion. I think this is a really good one. You will you will come to the realization that that pipeline definitely was sabotaged, and then obviously you can decide if you agree with whom we think sabotaged it. All right, episode number 64, super goofy, more debate, but this was the Ron DeSantis versus Gavin Newsom on Fox News, hosted by Sean Hannity. That thing was just a travesty of justice. Actually, no, it wasn't a travesty of justice. It was just ridiculous. But I will say, and I've said this before, I think it was part of the blueprint of getting Gavin Newsom introduced to the American public for the potential of sliding in and replacing Joe Biden as the Democratic candidate for president in 2024, and that's something I see happening incredibly late in the game due to a medical situation that could emerge for Biden. I hope it doesn't. I don't wish bad medically on anybody. I wish good health for everybody, but I think that that's the way they're going to do it. There's also a great clip at the end from Anthony Bourdain in regards to Henry Kissinger, who died at the age of 100. And we will be deep shallow diving into Henry Kissinger as well, because that dude was a gangster, gangster, gangster. That's what they're yelling. It's not about a salary, it's all about reality. And the reality of it was Henry Kissinger was a bad, bad man, and nobody knows it because bro was under the radar. All right, episode 66, Anderson Cooper, CNN, The New York Times. This really, again, used some great clips to kind of highlight the ongoing situation, not only in Israel, but there were a couple other areas. I think we talked about Ukraine in this episode as well. All right, episode 67. This was called Empathy, Understanding What Others Are Feeling. This was another real talk episode, and one that I was really proud of because the word empathy has become something that's really become a lot more meaningful to me, and I really understand it a lot better. And it really comes down to putting yourself in someone else's shoes and doing role reversal, which I highly recommend. So role reversal, if there's a situation, just flip roles. Put yourself in that person's position, put that person in your position. And I think it really does help you think about things in a different way. All right, episode number 68. Quick shout out to my brother for the number 68. He'll know what I'm talking about. This one talked about the fourth GOP debate, a little more on the petrodollar, a little more on central bank digital currency, and it was an introduction to AIPAC, which is the Jewish lobby organization. We're going to talk about that more. Episode 69, another good one. This one actually kind of took this Israel-Palestine situation back to 1917, and I defined and explained the Balfour Declaration, as well as explaining kind of what took place with President Harry Truman in 1948. So this one's another really good one. It's kind of probably, I should have probably done this at the beginning of the entire Israel-Palestine stuff, but that's okay. I think actually it worked out better this way. All right, episode 70 and 71. These were two fun episodes for me, and it were slightly different subject. I really dove into health, a deep dive into health, from step counts to cholesterol in episode 70, toxicity, Fitbit, and septic shock, episode 71. So we're going to be doing a lot more health stuff. And if you want to get an understanding of health related things, definitely check out episode 70 and episode 71. Episode 72, pretty funny title, Geo Game of Thrones and Facebook versus Instagram. I really talked about how the political climate, gosh, it really is like Game of Thrones, and then also the different audiences on Facebook and Instagram. Episode 73, great episode if you want to understand what super PACs are, political action committees, PACs, and then super PACs. If you want to understand the connection between money, power, and politics, episode 73 is a good one. Episode number 74, again, a little more on the health side. We talked about intermittent fasting, and I shared my personal journey with the varied results that I'm seeing. So, health episode 74. Episode 75, we jumped back into the two-state solution. Is there a path to peace? Is there a potential for a two-state solution where Israel gets their own land, Palestine reemerges and gets their own land? I hope so, but I don't think so. We shall see. All right, episode 76. This was the second in the China series. So, this really talked about China's Belt and Road Initiative. It's also called the New Silk Road. So, again, if you want to understand where China nets out on so many things, listen to the One China Policy episode and then listen to this one, episode number 76, which talked about the New Silk Road. Okay, episode 77, Netflix, Obama, Kamala. Remember, we pronounce Vice President Kamala Harris's name as comma, as in the punctuation, la, Kamala. Okay. So episode 77 was Netflix, Obama, Kamala. Just kidding. See if you're paying attention. Kamala, Harvard, Elon, and then the Houthis. I really covered a variety of things in 77. Episode number 78. This was a big one. This was the introduction to my upcoming book, which is going to be called Deep Shallow Dive Into You. So if you want to listen to that, that was an all Ray D AI episode. Literally, my voice was not on that episode at all. So many of you commented back. They're like, dude, that was my favorite episode because I didn't actually have to hear you. Haha, very funny. A couple of people I think were actually serious about that. And that part was not funny. But anyway, episode 78 introduction. Book is coming. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to share that with you guys. Episode 79, Merry Christmas. And then yesterday was episode 80, which was part one of this recap. And also, I shared my incredibly awesome time that I had with my niece over Christmas, looking at birds and getting her take on the deep shallow dive. All right, that's it, everybody. I went to 24 minutes on this one because honestly, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I can finish this recap in 2 episodes. Call a spade a spade. We've got a lot of good stuff coming. And please keep the feedback coming to me. I love hearing from people. I love hearing from everybody. I love getting opinions. I love having discussions. And that is a wrap. Call a spade a spade. Have a great day or night.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.